Hey guys, tonight we're plunging elbows deep into one of humanity's most gloriously odd inventions, laundry day in ancient Rome. Yes, you heard right. It's not gladiators or chariot races, but the truly dangerous business of getting your toga white by soaking it in pee. Not the myth, not a just for emergencies trick. We're talking full-scale, industrial strength, city-sponsored urine madness. Before you turn your nose up, take a second to like this video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy falling asleep learning history's most questionable habits. Drop a comment telling me which modern chore you'd outsource to an enslaved Roman boy, and whether you're listening from the comfort of your bed or the bathroom in the spirit of tonight's theme. Now, dim the lights, switch on that fan, and maybe freshen up with whatever's in your bathroom, preferably not urine. Stretch out, breathe deep, and let's wonder, how did Romans get their sheets cleaner with less technology than your washing machine? Did they really collect pee in public jars? And did people actually line up to donate their morning coffee? Would you rather live with grass stains or face a Roman washhouse worker's feet after a long day of treading the vat? And if cleanliness is next to godliness, did the gods of Rome just smell like a crowded stadium restroom? Congratulations. You have just woken up in ancient Rome, standing knee-deep in a bucket, with the scent of eau de urine filling your nostrils, and your clean laundry goals suddenly feeling very, very complicated. You awaken, not to the gentle buzz of an iPhone alarm, but to the cacophony of a Roman street. Vendors yelling, horses clattering, and somewhere nearby, a suspiciously liquid sound. Your job is simple. Find water, keep clean, don't die. Your bed is a straw mattress, and your sheets, well, those definitely need washing. Sleep left you as soon as someone bellowed about fresh figs for sale, their voice somehow travelling straight through the wooden shutters. You rub your eyes, feeling yesterday's dust still clinging to your skin. In the world outside your door, the day is already alive with the symphony of survival. Traders setting out stalls, the clang of ironmongers, the persistent braying of donkeys with their own opinions about rush hour. First order of business. Water. This is ancient Rome, so you can't just stumble half awake to the kitchen sink. Instead, you grab your tunic, scratchy, a little musty, possibly shared with a distant cousin last week. Personal hygiene here is less spa day and more don't start an epidemic. If you're lucky, your building is near one of Rome's many fountains, fed by the ingenious network of aqueducts arching over the city like giant stone caterpillars. You take your terracotta jug and join a short queue. You swap a few words with neighbours, exchanging local news. Who's in or out of favour today's grain? Prices. Who got caught watering down their wine? The water feels cold and clean and suddenly precious. Romans prided themselves on their public works, and aqueducts brought fresh water from miles away, but don't think about what happens to it once it's flowed through the city. For now, you wash your face, chase away some of the city grime, and count yourself lucky. At least it's not the Tiber, whose contents are better left unmentioned at breakfast. But cleanliness, in Rome, isn't just about you. It's about the collective well-being and the collective nose. You glance around your insula, the crowded apartment block where you rent a cramped, sun-starved room. Down the hallway, the communal latrine is unmistakable for its smell and its lack of privacy. Rows of marble seats, zero partitions, but at least running water beneath to sweep away the worst of it. Personal privacy, a modern luxury, but at least you won't die of thirst. Or, with luck, cholera. Breakfast is simple. Maybe a hunk of coarse bread, yesterday's cheese, a few olives, not a latte in sight. You chew thoughtfully, grateful for small mercies. You remember that, as a Roman, to be clean is a public duty, and to be seen as unkempt is almost criminal. You might envy the aristocrat across town, bathing at the opulent thermae, steam, marble, gossip, massages, while you scrape by with cold water and a public fountain. But for most Romans, washing meant a splash of water and a good scrape with a strigil, not a long soak. Outside, the streets teem with daily drama. Street cleaners, professional fulonis, trudge by with buckets, trying to keep the worst of the filth off the stones. Their secret weapon, ammonia, courtesy of collected urine, which you'd rather not think about as you finish your bread. You sidestep a dog, marvel at a patrician lady's gilded sandals, make your way into the living mosaic that is Rome. Today you'll dodge chamber pots emptied from upper windows, keep an eye out for bakery fires, and avoid the notoriously dangerous traffic jams at temple squares. You take a final look at the sun rising over tiled roofs and remind yourself, every day you wake up in Rome is a small miracle. Find water, keep clean, don't die, and if all else fails, try not to step in anything. Suspiciously liquid. Let me know if you'd like me to further adapt the language or add more historical detail. It's laundry day and you're feeling motivated. Motivated, that is, until you realise there's no Tide Pods, no delicate cycles, and most importantly, zero shame. You hike up your tunic, grab your dirty linens, and head to the Falonica, the Roman laundromat, where things are about to get pungent. Modern folks might dread sorting their colours from their whites, or struggle to untangle a knotted bedsheet, but these are trivial complaints compared to what faced the average Roman. For one thing, the Falonica isn't nestled away discreetly in your garage or a cosy basement. It's right there on the bustling streets of Rome, sandwiched between a baker and a tavern, where everyone, your friends, neighbours, and sworn enemies, can witness your stained toga fluttering in the breeze. Talk about public airing of dirty laundry. Once inside, you're greeted not by gentle whirring machines, but by the heady aroma of ammonia. Yes, that's urine, which is the star ingredient in this historical cleansing routine. The Romans, ever resourceful, collected pee in giant jars outside street corners and then poured it liberally over grimy garments. Why ammonia? As it turns out, it's fantastic at breaking down organic stains. Innovation, you mutter to yourself, pinching your nose and trying not to imagine whose donation is soaking into your favourite linen shift. The cleaning process itself would make even the most die-hard gym enthusiast break a sweat. There are no buttons to press, just you, your fellow citizens, and a trough filled with what can only be called vintage rinse. The attendant hands you a stick, that's your agitator, move over, spin cycle, and soon you're stomping clothing underfoot, gladiator style. Your feet squelch against the linen, sloshing the puckering mix of water, ash, clay, and of course, the iconic Roman pee. This isn't just laundry, it's team building, complete with shouts, jokes, and the occasional competitive stomp-off to see who can get the most lather out of a stola. Some fullers, Roman laundry professionals, take pride in their craft. They employ secret formulas, adding earth or lye to help brighten whites, or smeared clay to lift deep-set oil stains. And if you think fabric softener is a modern luxury, consider this. Some places offered a final rinse in fresh water mixed with fragrant herbs or imported oils. But mostly, you're just thankful for that last dunk in fresh water. A moment of relief before you dash for the exit, your freshly laundered cloth clutched triumphantly in your arms. Of course, this whole spectacle is accompanied by ample gossip. Did you catch that Marcus's tunic has suspicious wine stains? Or that Claudia's new woolen shawl already looks worn out? The Falonica isn't just functional, it's social. Between scrubbing sessions, you might hear romances bloom, trade news about gladiator games, or negotiate a loan. These are the Romans after all. If laundry day feels like a burden now, imagine doing it surrounded by half your neighbourhood, each with a story to tell, or a secret to spill. Perhaps it's not so surprising then that some of the most elaborate mosaics found in Roman laundries show scenes of mythological heroes and gods. Maybe a reminder that even Hercules himself had to wash his lion skin now and then. As you haul your basket of clean, okay, at least less dirty, linens outside, blinking in the Mediterranean sun, you can't help but feel a small surge of pride. You navigated the odours, the gossip, and the ancient art of wardrobe renewal. Next time you curse your overflowing laundry bin, spare a thought for the tunic-wearing citizens of Rome who did it all with no detergent, little dignity, and a whole lot of community spirit. Because in ancient Rome, laundry was never just a chore. It was a shared ritual, a splashy spectacle, and, whether you liked it or not, a most revealing adventure. Why buy expensive soaps when you can collect people's pee? Welcome to a world where urine is not just a bodily function. It's government incentivized gold. Neighborhood piss pots line the streets, and the best thing you can do is not look too closely at what's splashing your sandals. In ancient Rome, the phrase, "one man's trash is another man's treasure," was more literal and considerably more pungent than we might expect. The city's entrepreneurs weren't above getting their hands and feet dirty if profits were involved. Every street corner played host to public urinals, wide-mouthed clay jars that invited passers-by to make a small deposit. Forget banks. In Rome, liquidity had a whole new meaning. These communal latrines weren't just for convenience. They were the first link in a surprisingly sophisticated value chain. Here's how it worked. Full pots would be emptied by professional fullers. Think laundrymen with stronger stomachs than most. These industrious souls collected the urine and hauled it to their workshops, grimly referred to as philonike. Why? Because urine, as it turns out, is loaded with ammonia, making it the ancient equivalent of industrial detergent. Clothes, especially woolen garments, were stomped and scrubbed in this potent and pungent solution to lift dirt, whiten fabric, and even fix dyes. If you thought modern dry cleaning was expensive, be glad you never had to pay for the Roman premium wash. The government, recognizing a golden opportunity, pun intended, did what governments do best. They levied a tax. The so-called vectigal urine was introduced in the 1st century by Emperor Vespasian, who saw civic benefit and a source of much-needed revenue in the river of pee flowing through Rome's streets. This urine tax became so legendary that a version of Vespasian's remark, "money does not stink, pecunia non olet," is still quoted today when discussing questionable sources of income. Roman ingenuity didn't stop at laundry. Ammonia-rich urine was a household staple, used in cleaning homes, tanning leather, and even brushing teeth. Yes, wealthy Romans paid handsomely for imported powders and pastes, but the thrifty relied on fresh local ingredients for that gleaming smile. If you're grimacing at the thought, just remember, history is rarely sanitized, and resourcefulness sometimes trumps dignity. But the urine economy wasn't only a story of practical necessity, it was a social and economic glue. Fullers, often freedmen or the children of slaves, could carve out a modest living in a society stacked heavily against them. The Fullonica was loud, chaotic, and constantly bustling, a place where laundry, gossip, and commerce all mixed in the heady Roman air. The people who collected and processed urine operated on the fringe of respectability, yet were indispensable to the city's daily grind. Of course, this golden tide had its detractors. Roman satirists loved nothing more than skewering the sense and sensibilities of city life. The Fuller's Quarter was famous for its eye-watering aroma, and the proximity of workshops to residential neighbourhoods sparked more than a few written complaints. Yet, for every citizen wrinkling their nose at the stench, there was another eyeing the profits, or at least appreciating their newly brightened togas. All in all, the pay-for-profit enterprise was a testament to Roman pragmatism. Nothing went to waste, not even bodily fluids. The very people who scorned the fullers on the street might sneak in after hours to drop off a chamber pot or pick up a freshly whitened tunic. The urine economy was, in its own foamy way, a great social leveller, a necessary inconvenience that everyone, highborn or humble, contributed to. So next time you reach for a bottle of detergent in the supermarket, consider the Roman citizen navigating puddles on their marble pavements, sandals flecked with the city's strange sour wealth. In ancient Rome, clean laundry didn't just come at a price, it came with a story worthy of its own scent. You're not above civic duty. Today, you bravely contribute your own, liquid gold. At a public urinal pretending it's an act of charity. No one applauds, but you and every Roman know. Your bladder just powered the laundry industry. Let's set the stage. Picture a bustling Roman street, the kind where sandal traffic jams are a daily ordeal, and the shouts of market vendors form the city's soundscape. Down the block, among the street's many practical wonders, stands one of Rome's most curious civic contraptions. A public urinal, or as the Romans knew it, the fullo's best friend. It's not much to look at, certainly less impressive than an aqueduct, but to the ancient laundry industry, this unassuming stone trough is a gold mine, or, more accurately, a yellow mine. As you step up, you join a legion of other good citizens. Some wink, some whistle. A few are too preoccupied with yesterday's chariot race results to notice. But all of you are united in one shared, slightly awkward purpose, providing the city with ammonia-rich urine. Pecunia non olet, money doesn't stink, Roman Emperor Vespasian supposedly quipped while introducing a tax on the city's public urinals. He was right. If you're in the business of washing togas, urine is worth its weight in gold. Well, not quite gold, but certainly worth more to a professional Roman washer than anything else the public might care to donate. Here's the beauty of this civic system. Your donation doesn't just vanish down the drain. No, it's carefully collected and transported to the launderers, the fullones. These hard-working folks, with their impressive biceps and even sturdier noses, use your offering to strip stubborn oils and stains from tunics, cloaks, and, most crucially, senatorial togas. Nothing says, "I'm ready for the Senate," quite like a tunic that's been delicately massaged with, well, the collective bladder power of Rome. Let's not romanticize it too much. Public urinals weren't noble marble fountains. More often, they were simple stone basins, tucked discreetly into alleyways, positioned strategically near busy markets to maximize donations. Privacy wasn't exactly a priority. The Romans were pragmatic, and when nature called in public, public it was. Still, the sense of civic contribution ran deep. What modern society calls waste, Rome called resourcefulness. It's not all about practicality. There's a certain pride in contributing to the city's cleanliness, however indirectly. Imagine telling your friends over a mug of watered wine, "You know that sparkling white tunic Lucius wore to court today? That was me." Sure, they might laugh, but deep down, everyone knows that the city runs not just on grain and politics, but on the humble infrastructure of its citizens, sometimes quite literally. Ironically, this whole system is overseen by the same state that taxes you for your, let's say, generosity. But it works. Your taxes maintain the urinals empower the fullones, and the fullones clothe the city's elite. It's the Roman circle of life. powered by a uniquely democratic form of participation. Of course, there's room for mischief too. Some Romans, less civically minded, might skip the urinal and relieve themselves in the shadows. Or worse, near the neighbour's doorway. The city, keen on cleanliness, posted fines for public urination in unsanctioned spots. So even in Rome, don't mess with the city's recycling programme. So, as you straighten your tunic and rejoin the flow of Roman life, take pride in your role. You've answered nature's call, paid your due, perhaps even literally, and earned yourself a small, invisible badge of civic honour. Tomorrow, when you pass a crisp white toga billowing in the forum breeze, remember, behind every spotless robe, there's a team effort, and every now and then, that team includes you. Step inside the Folonica, a place as steamy and chaotic as your local spin class, but with 3 times the smell. Stone vats, wooden pulleys, and enough ammonia fumes to erase your nose hairs greet you. There's a constant sploshing and shouting, and a lot of desperate attempts at small talk. Here, laundry isn't just a chore. It's performance art meets full contact sport, staged amid a backdrop of ancient Roman hustle. The centerpiece is the series of stone vats arranged like a makeshift obstacle course. Each one holds a different fluid, water, lye, animal urine, designed to coax even the most stubborn olive oil stains from a senator's toga. And yes, you read that right. This ancient dry cleaner thrived on the copious use of urine, collected from the public urinals conveniently stationed at street corners. Roman efficiency at its finest, if not its most fragrant. The fullers, workers who run the show, move like clockwork. At one station, a burly man stomps on a pile of tunics in a shallow vat, his calves working overtime. His job is to agitate the cloth, forcing cleaning agents deep into the fibres. Think of it as high-intensity interval training. But instead of burning calories, you're burning through filth. Close by, his colleague wrings out piles of wet fabric and flings them over a wooden pole, leaving a trail of drips across the slippery flagstone floor. Each movement is purposeful, repetitive, and, despite all the chaos, surprisingly efficient. Tools of the trade line the walls, stiff brushes cut from hog bristle, hollowed-out ladles for dousing garments, and thick leather aprons to fend off the inevitable splashes. Overhead, thick ropes and wooden pulleys form a rudimentary drying rack. Fullers hoist wet clothes skyward, turning the Folonica into a forest of waving linen. On a busy day, the air inside is thick with steam, kicked up from the boiling water, and an eye-watering aroma, a blend of sweat, soapwort, and ammonia that could, and often does, clear a room. But the work isn't all heavy lifting. There's chemistry too. Once the fabric is scoured and rinsed, it might be brightened with chalk or clay, or even brushed with perfumes for a dash of luxe. Quality control is as rigorous as any modern-day laundromat, although the measuring tools are more hands-on. A quick touch to test softness, a keen sniff to ensure no bonus aromas remain. Mistakes aren't unheard of. A toga shrunk to child size, a coloured tunic that's mysteriously tie-dyed. But Romans are nothing if not inventive in hiding blemishes. Business in the Folonica isn't all elbow grease. Amid the tumult, deals are struck, gossip circulates, and the city's undercurrent of news flows as freely as the rinse water. Owners of the workshop, often freedmen who'd worked their way up, tally accounts and keep a cautious eye on apprentices, making sure no prophet accidentally walks out the door sewn into a tunic hem. Despite the hard labour and potent atmosphere the Folonica is more than a workplace. It's a microcosm of Roman daily life and ambition. Here the humble becomes essential. The mundane becomes extraordinary. Every splash and stomp every slippery step and shouted order, is a reminder that even the most exalted Romans needed someone to get their whites whiter, no matter the cost or the scent. Forget gym memberships. Here, you earn your biceps by stomping fabric in urine with your bare feet. It's less spin class and more odorous grape stomping, except the grapes are socks and the wine is, well, not wine. Picture a bustling Roman laundry or Phalonica set against the whispers of ancient alleyways. Here, labourers, feet calloused, expressions resolute, step into shallow vats brimming with a pungent cocktail of water and human urine. The chosen cleaning agent, ammonia-rich and more abundant than soap, wasn't just brutally effective at breaking up grease and grime, it was also gloriously free. The floor beneath was slick, the air thick with a stinging aroma sharp enough to wake even the sleepiest centurion. The treading itself was a communal ritual. Slaves and labourers, men and women together, would hitch up their tunics and plunge in, feet rising and falling in a fleshy dance. There was a rhythm to this process, a cadence set by the squelch of sodden wool and the soft slosh of fluid. It was awkward at first, hard to ignore the feeling of slippery, once soggy togas running between your toes. But after a few minutes, you fell into step, alone with your thoughts, surrounded by the steady background of conversational murmur or the occasional joke about whose contribution had the strongest bouquet. Unlike the mechanical rotations of a modern washing machine, Roman treading required genuine muscle. Strong legs were a must, but so was endurance. Each session could last for hours, muscles burning as you pounded stubborn stains out of linens that, judging by their condition, had been through several campaigns. By late afternoon, everyone's calves looked like they'd survived an Olympic training regimen, though the aroma clinging to them was more gladiator sweat than Olympic gold. There was a method to the chaos. Workers changed out the liquid repeatedly, stomping first in a soak, and then in a secondary round with fresher fluid. The goal? Take stained, sweat-soaked cloth and return it, if not to pristine glory, then at least to a respectable shade of ivory. The Fullones' reputation hinged on their ability to deliver a finished product without lingering evidence of its pungent journey. Odorless might have been wishful thinking, but less offensive was at least within reach. And unlike most laundry days today, this chore was not a private affair attended by detergent and solitude. No. Roman laundries were social hubs. Business was discussed, politics debated, and alliances formed amid the splash and squish. If you had an argument to settle or gossip to share, there was no better place than among the vats, where secrets exchanged in a fog of ammonia seemed safe from eavesdropping aristocrats. Of course, there was drama too. Slips and splatters were commonplace, and a poorly timed splash could ruin more than just your mood. Rivalries simmered between teams of treaders, some accused of slacking, others of splashing too enthusiastically. And always, at the end of the day, there was the eternal debate. Who had tracked home the largest, smelliest set of footprints? Even after washing, the memory of this daily spin cycle lingered long after the sun went down, the unmistakable souvenir of ancient Roman cleanliness. So, next time your modern washing machine grinds away unseen, consider the treading, an exhausting, aromatic, and surprisingly communal chapter in the story of human hygiene. It was the original spin cycle, powered not by electricity, but by sweat, banter, and a whole lot of questionable fluid. In every stomp, the Romans weren't just cleaning clothes, they were building community, one slippery step at a time. If you think your teen job was bad, imagine being the kid in charge of stirring everyone's dirty togas in week-old pee. You dream of promotion, to fetching new pee. But for now, this is your life. Let's set the scene. The air is thick, and not in the let's crack a window way, but more like the gods themselves have decided to punish you for being born into the wrong family. The laundry, or Phalonica, sits on the edge of the Roman street, a bubbly temple of suffering, with vats of soggy cloth soaking in what politely gets called cleaning solution. Spoiler, it's mostly urine. The Romans believed in recycling, just not in any glamorous way. Human urine, or as they called it, lotium, was considered liquid gold for its ammonia content, which worked wonders on stains and odours. That's right. Before Fabreze, there was pee. So, you, the lowest-ranking Phalonica apprentice, find yourself standing barefoot in a sun-warmed tub, sent in circles to stomp on tunics that belong to the senator's wife, the baker's cousin, and, for all you know, the gladiator, who's really bad at personal hygiene. The Phalonica owner, who definitely peaked in life before he bought this operation, yells encouragements like, "Don't forget to really mash the underarms." You're 11. You don't question why there's a whole city pipeline dedicated to collecting urine from the city's public pee pots, just that you're somehow always on the pee end of every errand. And it's not just urine you wrangle. There's the challenge of getting stains out with animal fats and fuller's earth, kneading, squishing, and then rinsing everything in water so cold you start to bargain with household gods for just 5 minutes of sunlight. To break the monotony, your fellow apprentices invent a game. Who can fish out the weirdest thing from the vat? So far, Gaius leads with half a mouse, but you're confident your time will come. Occasionally, an innovation improves your workflow. Someone invents a big wooden paddle, so now you get to splash lotium up to your elbows instead of just your ankles. The foreman claims it builds character. Maybe it does. Or maybe it just builds lasting trauma, along with that smell that never really washes off. Even the alley cats give you a wide berth. But for even a lowly laundry boy, there's a hierarchy, and you're definitely not at the top. There's the senior apprentice who's older, taller, and has mastered the art of ducking out whenever a senator's delicate silks are involved. If you're unlucky, you get stuck with the shift where the inn sends over a merchant's toga after a wine accident. You learn pretty fast that you'll need a second pass, and maybe prayers to Minerva. Take solace, though. Every once in a while, a customer tosses a coin your way for exceptional service. You assume this is because their toga no longer smells like last week's chariot race. You pocket the coin. You even fantasize about a future where you run your own Phalonica, one where apprentices are only made to stomp clothes on alternate days, and the urine is freshly collected, not second-hand. Dream big. And then, of course, comes promotion. The Phalonica master trusts you with the sacred task of running down the street to collect the pee pots from the public latrine, an honour. You trade out your stained tunic for one that's slightly less hideous. As you slosh home with your precious barrel, every dog in Rome seems to conspire to trip you up. And yes, your foot does slip. But you've made it. You are now the pea fetcher, no mere agitator. Someday, you'll make it all the way to towel wringer, and people will speak your name with awe. Or at least they won't wrinkle their noses quite so much. Either way, when the other kids at the public baths complain about chores, you just smile to yourself. Compared to Phalonica life, everything else smells like roses. Soap exists, technically. But why use it when you have a chemical reaction on your side? The ammonia in urine helps bleach stains out, but doesn't do much for your self-esteem or body odour. In the bustling streets and communal laundries of ancient Rome, cleanliness was a group project and, arguably, an Olympic sport. While the empire did know of soap, a clunky block made from mixing animal fat with ashes, it was considered more of a curiosity than a necessity. Laundry was often outsourced to professional fullers, who gleefully stomped tunics and togas in large vats of diluted urine, believing the caustic power of ammonia would remove stubborn grime. The pungent aroma drifting from these workshops was infamous, but, hey, fashion has always required a bit of suffering. The logic was there. Forget flowery freshness. Embrace the nose-clearing tang of ancient chemistry. To modern noses, this approach sounds positively medieval, but Romans developed a pragmatic tolerance to these scents, the same way we get used to the chemical lemon of cleaning wipes. To the Roman citizen, the alternative was worse: public shame for dirt-streaked togas and a serious ding to one's reputation. Hygiene, after all, was a marker of civilization, at least among the upper crust, but soap didn't vanish entirely. In certain corners of the empire, particularly among the Gauls and Germans, soap-making was a craft, passed down generations. They concocted their soap with animal tallow and lye, sharing the secrets with Roman neighbours, who promptly eyed this foreign goop with skepticism. Why lather up with animal fat and caustic ash when there are perfectly good buckets of communal urine available at the local laundromat? Old habits die hard, even in the shadow of the Colosseum. Inside private homes, the story is more nuanced. Wealthier citizens had access to imported soaps, sometimes delicately scented with herbs or olive oil, though these were reserved for special occasions or medical uses. For everyday cleansing, sand, oil, and sometimes even crushed shells were more popular exfoliants than any bubbly concoction. Bathing itself became an elaborate social event, a place for gossip, debate, business deals, and showing off an impressive backstroke. In these steamy complexes, Romans exfoliated with strigils, scraping their bodies clean after slathering on olive oil, leaving actual soap out of the spotlight. Still, the empire did have a sense of humour about it all. Roman satirists couldn't resist poking fun at their own hygiene quirks. Better a clean odour of ammonia than the filth of the forum, one might sniff. To their credit, communal bathing and fulling businesses did improve public health, drastically reducing the amount of dirt, lice, and disease compared to civilizations that bathed less often. Whether by urine, oil, or the rare slab of soap, the message was clear. Looking and smelling presentable was the mark of a true Roman. If you managed to return from the baths with your toga whiter than when you entered, and only slightly less fragrant, you'd probably call that a win. Think of it as the ancient version of wearing a crisp white shirt to a pizza place and coming out stain-free, a small victory for dignity, if not for olfactory pleasure. And so, while the Romans didn't exactly invent the bubble bath, they did lay the groundwork for the daily dance with cleanliness we all practice today. In some ways, we owe those stomp-happy fullers and their buckets of chemistry for turning hygiene from an afterthought into an obsession, even if the methods make us wrinkle our noses 2,000 years later. Did Romans notice the stench? Or did they just assume everyone always had watery eyes? You try to hold your breath, but it's like living inside a public restroom during a heat wave. Now let's not beat around the bush. Ancient Rome stank. Forget those sweeping marble staircases and epic temple facades. What hit you first wasn't the view, it was the smell. Picture wandering down a bustling Roman street, trying to enjoy your wine, while a medley of human waste, animal droppings, and garbage marinates in the Mediterranean sun. The aroma was less ode to Rome and more ode to disaster. So how exactly did the Romans cope? For starters, they couldn't just plug in a scented candle and call it a day. Air fresheners weren't invented yet, and the only thing wafting on the breeze was a reminder that the Cloaca Maxima, the city's famous sewer, could only do so much. Sure, the sophisticated aqueduct and sewer systems helped move waste away from the city's heart. But with over 1 million people packed together and only primitive plumbing at best, the results were mixed. Overflowing chamber pots were often emptied right onto the streets below, straight from upper-story windows. If you were unlucky enough to be walking under one, you didn't need a weather forecast. You needed an umbrella and a forgiving nose. What about inside Roman homes? The wealthy might splash around rosewater or burn incense, not necessarily to impress guests, but simply to mask the competing scents of sweaty bodies and smoky kitchens. Streetside eateries, known as popine, sizzled up food, sure, but also spilled their greasy leftovers onto the very roads. People walked. Imagine a city where every corner has its own signature stench. The public baths, Rome's pride and joy, tried to tip the balance in the other direction. Bathed bodies smelled considerably better after soaking in warm waters and a good scrape down with an olive oil strigil. But get enough people using the same bathwater over and over, and even Aphrodite would wrinkle her nose. To compensate, bathhouses often burned aromatic herbs or tossed in pungent oils. Did it work? Maybe for the first hour, but after that, no amount of lavender could subdue the masses. And then there's the matter of livestock. Horses, donkeys, goats. They weren't penned outside the city, they were part of daily life. Picture your local market, but with roaming animals doing what animals do, right next to someone weighing fish. If you had to describe Rome's olfactory landscape, farmyard meets metropolis might come close. But here's the kicker. After a while, Romans probably just stopped noticing. Our noses quickly adjust to bad smells, and when everyone's in the same smelly boat, normal gets redefined. Complaints about the stink crop up in ancient comedy and satire, but mostly as punchlines, because really, what could you do? Daily life pressed on, nose pinching and all. In sum, ancient Romans invented concrete, aqueducts, the calendar, and, unintentionally, an immersive, full sensory experience for every resident and visitor. They masked, redirected, joked, and simply endured the ever-present olfactory assault. Rome wasn't built in a day, but if it had been, everyone probably would have agreed. Maybe let's start with the plumbing next time. If you want white clothes, you get creative. The fuller's scrub, stomp, twist, and rinse, hoping the gods of cleanliness are watching. The result? Dazzling whites achieved with methods that would terrify your dry cleaner. But what if your tunic is more oatmeal than snowdrift? Enter the ancient bleaching process, a curious blend of chemistry, sunbathing, and just a dash of public spectacle. Our fullers weren't just launderers, they were practical alchemists, coaxing stubborn linen and wool into surrendering their yellows and browns for the sake of Roman fashion. Step 1. The soak. Let's begin in the Phallonica, the Roman laundry. Your stained toga is plunged into a waiting vat, awash with a concoction that's frankly legendary. Modern detergents have nothing on what's brewing here. The main ingredient? Human urine. Yes, you heard that right. Collected from public urinals and donated by passers-by. Ever charitable. Urine's ammonia works wonders on organic stains and lingering grease. Clothes would soak for hours, sometimes longer, absorbing every last drop of cleaning power, while fullers rhythmically stomped atop the fabric, singing work songs, their feet becoming the city's unofficial agitators. Step 2. The earthly touch. After this fragrant dip, it's time for fuller's earth. This clay-like substance is sprinkled onto the damp clothes, absorbing oil and further lifting out impurities. Fullers knead and pummel the fabric, working the earth deep into the threads. The result? a kind of primitive dry shampoo for your robe, talcum powdered and ready for the next act. Don't let the dust cloud fool you. It's all in the name of spotlessness. Step 3. The rinse and repeat. With the initial stains banished, the laundry crew drags everything to the rinse vats. Here, cool water sluices through the cloth, chasing away chemicals and residual grime. But even after this rinse, your tunic is rarely white enough for the discerning Roman eye. The process wouldn't win any speed awards. Routine involves repeated dips, kneads, and rinses before anyone is satisfied. Step 4. The sun's blessing. Now comes the magical part, solar bleaching. Freshly scrubbed clothes are spread out on rooftops, terraces, and open courtyards, angled to catch the blazing Mediterranean sun. Sunlight acts as a natural whitener, slowly coaxing lingering pigments from the fibres. There's a ritualistic quality to this. Laundry flapping overhead, Roman matrons trading gossip below, and fullers darting about like custodians of purity. Sometimes, a special solution, containing sulfur or even chalk, would be sprinkled over the damp garments, accelerating the whitening process, or delivering an extra punch to especially stubborn spots. Step 5. The market reveal. When the sun's work was done, the garments, now crisp, fragrant, gloriously white, were whisked back inside for inspection. Only the best would make it to market or be returned to aristocratic owners. Imagine the satisfaction. A once brown tunic, now brighter than Rome's marble statues. The fuller's work, though laborious and occasionally malodorous, was central to Roman society's well-groomed appearance and competitive edge. Lords and ladies, merchants and senators would always know where their laundry stood in the great pecking order of whiteness, the hidden price of purity. Of course, all this came at a cost. Shriveled hands, tired legs, and the lifetime scent of ammonia trailing a fuller wherever they went. But for a civilization obsessed with public image and personal hygiene, the bleaching process was simply another day's work. And though we might chuckle at their unorthodox ingredients, Rome's bright whites were proof that a bit of resourcefulness and a lot of elbow grease can outshine even the harshest stains. After the pea bath comes an enthusiastic rinse in freezing river water. Your skin tingles, your nose twitches, and you wonder if your dignity will ever return. But there's no time for existential crises now. Your guide is already stripping down and wading in with an alarming lack of hesitation. The rest of the group stands at the muddied bank like nervous ducklings, clutching towels, flip-flops, and whatever shreds of modesty remain. A palpable anxiety hangs in the air. The cold river seems to mock your hesitation, glittering silver with menace under the morning sun. Someone offers encouragement. Just get it over with. It sounds, suspiciously, like the voice of someone delighted not to be going first. Someone else mutters about hypothermia and insurance. But the unspoken peer pressure is undeniable. You edge closer, trying to convince yourself that you're merely embracing adventure, not experiencing a slow-motion breakdown. Finally, you plunge. The shock is total. The water isn't refreshing in that spa brochure way. It's the kind of liquid ice that hijacks your lungs, turning gasps into squeaks and rendering all previous complaints irrelevant. The tiny rocks stab your feet. The current tugs at your knees as if it's impatient for you to get on with it. You begin the awkward process of rinsing. There is no graceful choreography here. The arms flail inelegantly, scrubbing away the residual effects of the pea bath, which now feels like a spa treatment by comparison. Meanwhile, every nerve ending is sending unprecedented levels of alertness to your brain, as if your nervous system wants to record this moment and replay it whenever you foolishly complain of a draft. You spot your fellow bathers, some methodically dousing and scrubbing, others standing motionless in the shallows, eyes squeezed shut, determined to survive through sheer willpower. Everyone is making involuntary noises, yelps, gasps, a kind of strangled whooping. Your numb limbs keep moving, partly for hygiene and partly because you know you'll freeze solid if you stop. At this point, personal boundaries have disintegrated like water-soluble soap. Whatever social contracts normally exist between strangers have been washed downstream. People share shampoo with surprising intimacy. Someone shouts, "Could you get my back?" And it no longer feels weird. If you're lucky, the sun slants kindly through the trees, offering a hint of warmth and a fleeting sense of accomplishment. Amidst all the shivering and commotion, someone attempts optimism. "Bet I never complain about my shower pressure again." The group cackles, our current discomfort temporarily transcended by unity. A band of frozen, rinsed survivors, forever bonded by the chilly embrace of the river. As the scrub down mercifully draws to a close, the focus shifts to the logistics of escape. How to get your towel, how not to slip on the rocks, how to dry and dress without flashing the entire countryside. You stagger up the bank, skin stinging and alive, fabricating new moves in the ancient dance of getting dressed in public, but pretending no one is watching. Clothes cling to goosebumps, arms and legs fumble through sleeves and pant legs, and soon, steam rises from your body, even as your ego quietly negotiates with your ID for a return to normalcy. Yet, as you glance over your shoulder at the river, a curious feeling stirs. Pride, perhaps, or camaraderie. You realize that any lingering embarrassment is nothing compared to the satisfaction of having taken part, however awkwardly, in this peculiar rite of passage. You didn't just rinse off the grime, you left a bit of self-seriousness behind in the current too. Laughter ripples through the group as we towel off and trudge back to camp. And you know, the memory of this rinse, the tingling skin, the shrieks and splashes, the loss and regaining of dignity, will last much longer than the cold itself. Clotheslines stretch across rooftops, flapping in dusty breezes and city smoke. You watch as your cleanish tunic dries, praying no pigeon bombs it before dinner. As you lean against the low wall, squinting at the sun's relentless blaze, you notice your neighbour across the lane eyeing her linens with similar suspicion. There's a quiet camaraderie in this shared act of waiting. Everyone's laundry tells a story, and in Rome, those stories are out for everyone to see. The tattered edge of a stoic farmer's cloak, the faded indigo of a wealthy widow's tunic, the tiny linen wraps belonging to a baby who only sleeps during the loudest part of the afternoon. Each piece sways on the line, an intimate catalogue of daily Roman frustrations and triumphs. The sun, despite its tendency to bake stones until they sing with heat, is your greatest ally, and sometimes your worst enemy. You've learned to time your washing, hang it too late, and the night air returns everything damp with dew. Too early, and the morning mist lingers, clinging to every fibre, reminding you that Rome was built on a swamp. And the wind, capricious, always eager to whip a sheet halfway to the forum if you haven't tied it down properly. There's an art to laundry in Rome. And like everything else in this city, that art demands patience, improvisation, and a healthy sense of humour. Your neighbours shout advice from rooftop to rooftop. Squatti la tunica. Shake out the tunic. It dries faster. Use the rosemary bush. Keeps the gnats off. You nod sagely, as if you haven't already learned these lessons the hard way. While your tunic dries, you wander the narrow roof, dodging tiles slick with dust. You survey a scene lifted straight from an epic poem, steam rising from pots, the glint of sunlight on bronze, flocks of birds swirling and dipping over the endless jumble of rooftops. Laundry flaps in every possible direction, pattern-patched, And, if the day's wind is especially enthusiastic, a few yards farther than anyone expected. This is the true cityscape, not gleaming marble, but a map of bedsheets, immortalized every day at noon. The scents up here are a tapestry of city life: olive oil, roasting barley, the sharp tang of vinegar used to rinse togas, and the less poetic aroma of the public latrine wafting up from below. You wince, but accept this is part of Rome's grand bargain. For every view of tiled domes and distant hills, there's a whiff of something robust. You fan your tunic for luck, checking for telltale white streaks, pigeon or calcium from the harsh washwater. In Rome, it could be either. Your mind drifts as the afternoon wears on. You recall your mother teaching you the best way to wring out fabric, twist from the ends, not the middle, while recounting tales of laundry catastrophes past. Rainstorms that came out of nowhere, cloth pilfered by magpies, a particularly strong gust that introduced her underthings to a passing senator. You smile, grateful for her wisdom, and hope the wind shows mercy today. Below, the world bustles on. Vendors hawk olives, children chase stray dogs, and somewhere, a donkey brays loud enough to make you jump. Up here, the pace is slower, the heartbeat of the city just a little softer. You inhale deeply, feeling, almost, at peace. Your tunic stiffens and lightens in the sun, the fibers crisp and scratchy against your palms. You know, as every Roman does, the sweet relief of slipping into sun-warmed linen after a day of sweat and bustle. This, you decide, is why the gods approve of sunlight, if only for the miracle of dry clothes. By evening your tunic is ready. You unclip it with reverence, shake off the last of the dust, and, miraculously, find it unsullied by pigeon or neighbourly mischief. The city glows gold, laundry lines casting long, sloping shadows over the tiles. Today, at least, you have outrun both rain and bird. Tomorrow, as always, you'll face the Roman sun again. If you need minor tweaks or want to emphasize certain details, let me know. In Rome, wearing a crispy, brightly colored toga is more than style. It's a power move. The whiter your tunic, the higher your social standing, and the more likely you are to get invited to dinner parties, served with a side dish of judgment. For ancient Romans, what you wore spoke louder than any family crest or official title. Sure, senators had their purple stripes and generals sported fancy armor, but the ultimate status symbol, a toga so blindingly clean it could double as a reflective surface for the next solar eclipse. Achieving this level of radiance wasn't about running down to the corner shop for a new outfit. Oh no. This was a battle waged in laundries, the Fuloniki, with urine-fueled cleaning agents and an army of professional cleaners who took their jobs, and the olfactory strain that came with them. Seriously. Imagine strolling through the Forum, your toga practically glowing as you pass less fortunate souls with dingier garb. You're radiating an unspoken message. I have both the money and the time to pay someone else to stomp my tunic clean. And I can afford spare clothes while it's being scrubbed. In this fashion hierarchy, dirt isn't just unhygienic. It's a dead giveaway that you're too busy, too poor, or heaven forbid, too indifferent to care. The cleanliness craze didn't stop with togas. Romans took meticulous care of their personal grooming, from elaborate hairstyles to finely trimmed nails, all curated to show that you had servants and leisure time at your disposal. The logic was almost ruthless. In a city swathed in dust and chaos, only the rich could maintain that just laundered look. The white toga became a wearable brag, a visual press release about your status, your connections, and your ability to host a dinner with imported oysters and wine. To dress well in Rome was to advertise your place in the pecking order without uttering a word. But fashion in ancient Rome was also theatre. Some politicians made entire careers out of garment management. For example, candidates for public office would swan about in pure white toga candida, literally, candidate toga, designed to dazzle voters and distract from inconvenient rumours about their character. The brighter the white, the harder they worked to convince the public of their moral and financial purity. Naturally, this gave birth to an arms race. Who could afford to bleach their togas more brilliantly and with greater frequency? Ironically, the quest for spotless clothing meant that status was always precarious. One puddle, one unfortunate wine spill, and you risked toppling down the social ladder. Of course, those who couldn't keep up with the sartorial arms race developed their own defences. Eye rolls, dry wit, and, when all else failed, a well-timed anecdote about the dangers of overzealous bleachers. There was a sense that Rome's obsession with immaculate dress was equal parts admiration and anxiety, a constant reminder that no position in society was ever truly secure. Cleanliness as status survives to this day. Modern red carpets and glittering galas owe more to the laundry-based trials of Roman fashion than most designers would care to admit. Whether in ancient Rome or today, we all recognise that the brightest whites aren't achieved by chance. They're purchased with privilege, maintained by labour, and always at risk of a well-timed splash of reality. So next time you spot someone white-knuckling their way through a crowded event, constantly checking their cuffs for imaginary smudges, just remember, they're pulling pageantry straight from the Roman playbook. When it comes to the spectacle of fashion, some things never go out of style. Wine spills, olive oil, yesterday's street mud. Roman stains are the stuff of legend. Fullers are the first detergent scientists, experimenting with sand, clay, and yes, fermentation. Pause for a moment and imagine the streets of ancient Rome, dazzling white togas fluttering in the breeze, and yet, this is a city of dust, drips, grease, and feet. Endless feet, tramping in all the mess the city has to offer. A marble capital is impressive, but a clean tunic, now that's everyday triumph. So how did they tackle mud splashes, or the treacherous splotch of wine at a banquet? The Roman solution, not just brute force, but genuine innovation. First, the fuller's workshop, known as a fullonica, is a place of bubbling vats and a scent that would make the modern laundrette blush. Here, garments are soaked, stomped, rinsed, and pounded. The process could be comical to watch. Imagine an assembly of workers, pants rolled up, rhythmically treading garments in a kind of soap opera meets grape stomping. But this was serious science. The tools of the trade start with earth itself. Romans knew that certain types of clay, fuller's earth, could absorb grease and pull mud from cloth. Sand, gritty and abundant, helped scour away what clay could not. These ingredients had the edge over plain water, which just made the mess soggier. But the real secret ingredient was fermentation. Buckets of urine, collected daily from public urinals, were set aside to age, harnessing ammonia's potent cleaning power. If this sounds eyebrow-raising, imagine the city's own emperor, Vespasian, levying a tax on urine collection, a royal seal of approval for chemistry in action. Beyond removing oils and stains, this mixture disinfected clothes, crucial in a city of crowds and questionable hygiene. So, while modern noses might wrinkle, a Roman fuller's method was as much about sanitation as style. Far from simple toil, theirs was an intuitive grasp of chemistry, centuries before it would be understood in textbooks. Stubborn stains required creativity. Take olive oil, the kitchen staple and lamp fuel alike notorious for its cling. Here, the fullers had a formula. The slurry of clay, sand, urine, and water, agitated persistently, could defeat even the glossiest smear. And after, garments were rinsed in running water, sometimes with a final soak in sulphurous solutions for that just brightened effect. But what about dye stains, those accidental tattoos from wool or spilled wine? Some stains told stories, the mark of festival grape or the ink of our scribe. While some might fade, others wove themselves permanently into the fabric, becoming quiet reminders of moments lived. There's an odd beauty in the fuller's expertise. These scientists of stink were indispensable and proud. Walls of Foloniki were decorated with frescoes showing the cleaning process, a badge of trade as vital to the city as any aqueduct. Next time you watch suds crawl across a stubborn spot on a modern shirt, spare a thought for the Romans. They were wrestling with the same enemies: oil, mud, and mystery blotches. And through clay, sand, fermentation, and yes, more than a little elbow grease, they left us a legacy. Never underestimate the power of a well-scrubbed toga. So the science of stains, Roman style, is a tale not just of cleanliness, but of creativity, chemistry, and the eternal battle between humans and the chaos that clings to what we wear. The Folonika doubles as the city's social media. Here, secrets flow as freely as the pee-vats. You hear everything, from scandalous affairs to whose tunic got trampled at the last Saturnalia. Mornings at the washhouse begin with a clatter, not just of sandals on slippery flagstones, but of conversation as lively as the suds themselves. In the steamy haze, housewives, slaves, and merchants' daughters churn rumours along with linens. The fullers, expert launderers, become unwitting moderators, their practiced hands wringing out both togas and tails. "Did you hear about Lucius?" one woman hisses, careful to keep her eyes fixed on her soap-slathered tunic. Caught sneaking out of Flavia's window, tunic inside out. A ripple of gasps. Scrubbing intensifies, as if the garments themselves are soaking up the juicy details. Someone mutters, "No wonder he's been strutting around like Jupiter on market day." Nobody is safe from the washhouse's grapevine. Not senators, not shopkeepers, not even the stern-mouthed matrons who sneak glances over their laundry, pretending not to listen. Children's escapades, romantic dalliances, business rivalries, temple donations that never quite reach the gods, all circulate here, polished and embroidered in each telling. The city's official notices might be posted on stone pillars, but real news travels on damp linen. The air in the Folonika crackles with this energy. It's not just idle chatter either. Who's fallen from favour, whose bakery burned, who might be negotiating for a better class of wool? Such morsels are currency in their own right. Laundry day becomes a chance to trade information as much as tunics and sashes. "I heard the baker's wife is with child again." Another whispers, arching an eyebrow. But whose? The laughter that follows bounces off the stone walls, echoing into the vats. Dust motes drift in the shafts of light filtering through high windows, illuminating faces intent on their labour. The stink of ammonia mingles with the bright tang of gossip, a pairing as old as the city itself. Occasionally, a fuller will glance up, give a knowing nod, and pass news between customers with a wordless gesture. His wink says as much as the loudest mouth in the room. Social hierarchies dissolve in the rhythm of scrubbing and rinsing. For a moment, everyone stands on equal footing, united by the stubborn stains on their garments and the longing for a little entertainment. Yet alliances form quickly and dissolve just as fast. Today, the patrician's daughter might be confiding in the greengrocer's wife. Tomorrow, they'll cross the street to avoid each other's gaze. Still, in the Folonika, secrets must be swapped for favors, a hint about the magistrate's upcoming inspection, or a tip-off about the fishmonger's freshest catch, if you want to make friends. Woe betide the one who becomes the subject, not the spectator, of this communal spectacle. A missing brooch, a whispered quarrel, a suspicious absence from the morning rites. All are grist for the rumour mill. Outright denial never works. If anything, protestations just add flavour to the concoction, ensuring the story will outlast the next laundry cycle. As the sun rises higher, the washhouse fills with the momentum of chores completed and stories told. Cloth is beaten clean, but reputations often emerge bearing a new stain or two. Still, the regulars keep coming back. Perhaps they enjoy the shared camaraderie, the harmless intrigue, or simply the knowledge that here, on the slippery floors of the Folonika, everyone's life is just a little more interesting, if only for the length of a wash. By midday, the city's clean clothes are hanging in the doorways, fluttering, drying in the breeze. The gossip, meanwhile, lingers, woven into the warp and weft of Pompeii's daily life, waiting for the next customer, the next story, the next splash. Even the rich and powerful need clean sheets. Rumour has it, some emperors sent their togas through the Folonika twice. You try not to dwell on whether their urine came from a special VIP jar. But let's wind back for a moment. Imagine a regal procession. The emperor himself, robes billowing, sandals pristine. Behind the scenes, though, his immaculate look is the handiwork of a bustling launderette staff, not a horde of silken-robed seamstresses, but a troop of fullers, elbow deep in suds and sweat. In the ancient Roman world, the Folonika wasn't just part of daily life. It was an institution. And just as today's celebrities rely on stylists and PR agents to keep their image flawless, yesterday's rulers needed their linens scrubbed to imperial brilliance. For the fullers of Rome, receiving the emperor's laundry was equal parts honour and terror. Drop a plebeian's tunic in a puddle. Maybe you get a scowl. Fumble for the emperor's toga. That could land you in a darker kind of bleach, one filled with imperial consequences. The pressure ran as thick as the ammonia fumes wafting through the back, rooms where vats of collected urine, yes, literal pots of pee, gathered from public latrines, awaited their role in purifying royal whites. And speaking of reputation, consider the rumours that sprouted around the emperor's laundry. Cleanliness, after all, was more than virtue. It was evidence of divine favour, an outward signal that the emperor was closer to the gods than to the mortals crowding the dirty streets. Gossip flowed almost as freely as the water in the Folonika. Was it true that special jars stood reserved for the emperor's garments, his urine collection, sourced from the most elite bladders in Rome, ensured to bestow an extra sparkle to his linens? No one knew for sure, though the most jaded washerwomen would wink and tell you that any jar could be VIP, so long as a bribe was tucked beneath it. Yet the washing process itself was robust and unglamorous. Workers stomped, twisted, and beat the fabrics in troughs, the reek potentially powerful enough to knock a patrician off his feet. Imagine the scene. A team of fullers rhythmically marching on the emperor's garments in a kind of gritty chorus line, all the while knowing any mishap could cost them their heads. Or at the very least, their jobs. Each stain scrubbed away wasn't just egg yolk from breakfast. It was a line between loyalty and possible doom. If you overheard someone say the emperor wore his robe twice, it wasn't a jab at thriftiness. It was praise for the Folonika's prowess. A toga fresh from the emperor's second wash was the ancient equivalent of wearing a suit straight from a five-star dry cleaner. Romans noted these things. The shine on the emperor's garment could be more persuasive than one of his decrees, or, when things went awry, subject of sniggers in the forum. Of course, procedures weren't the same for royal fabrics. The most trusted fullers devised secret rinse techniques rumoured to use infusions of rare herbs or even special imported soaps. These rituals hinted at magic, but were likely just clever marketing by the empire's most ambitious launderers. And then came the final touches. A robe belonging to Rome's highest authority wasn't just hung out across any old line. It was dried in sunbeams, filtered through courtyards, and wafted with the imperial equivalent of scented linen spray, perhaps crushed laurel leaves or hints of exotic resin. Folded with ceremony, the emperor's linen left the Fullonica not just clean, but imbued with the aura of majesty. So next time you flick open a fabric softener or grumble about stubborn wine stain on your shirt, spare a thought for the Roman fullers whose work made emperors appear immortal. One desperate, urine-soaked wash at a time. The next decree you bow to? It might just have been authored in a toga that owes its gleam to the unsung magicians of the emperor's laundry. Sometimes the colours run. Sometimes someone falls asleep in a vat. Sometimes someone throws up from the smell, and the cycle continues. It's basically an episode of ancient laundry fails. Laundry in the ancient world was an exercise in risk, and the margin for error was as wide as the Tiber at flood. Imagine the scene. Rows of heavy tunics bobbing in wooden washtubs. The air thick with the tangy scent of ammonia, and somewhere in the shadows, a teenager trying to sneak a nap. It's easy to picture a Roman laundry room as a kind of slapstick stage, with near misses and outright disasters playing out daily. One of the most common mishaps? The infamous colour bleed. Ancient fabrics were rarely colour fast, and a single overzealous dunk could transform pristine linens into a swirl of tie-dye gone wrong. Envision the despair of a Roman matron, the toga her husband wore to Senate, now streaked with imperial purple from her own best tunic. Voice raised, finger pointed, laundry lesson learned, maybe. The stories got retold and exaggerated for years, each washing day adding new victims and fresh hues to the legend. But what about the hazards of laundry labour itself? Washing wasn't just hard work, it was exhausting. In Roman Fullonica, workers, often slaves or poor labourers, would tread garments for hours, stomping with bare feet through vats of pungent urine and lye. Fatigue was inevitable. There are ancient accounts, half tragedy, half comedy, of apprentices falling asleep into their work, only to emerge hours, or, in the worst case, a full day, later, looking as bedraggled as the clothes they were supposed to be cleaning. A sleeping Fullonica assistant might have woken up to the sting of vinegar thrown by an angry overseer, or worse, the cackles of co-workers who'd now found their entertainment for the afternoon. And then there's the universal arch nemesis, the smell. Chemical detergents didn't exist, so laundry compounds featured a bouquet of ingredients best left unnamed during dinner conversation. Ancient sources don't hold back from reporting the stench, especially that of public laundries, where dozens of vats frothed with all manner of organic cleaners. First-timers, and occasionally seasoned pros, were known to gag, retch, or launch themselves outside for a breath of passable air. One poet even quipped that the perfume of the Fuller's Street could strip paint from statues. Passing such a shop became something of a dare. One did not do so on a full stomach. These exploits became local law. Songs were written, stories swapped in bathhouses, and every neighbourhood knew someone with a lost laundry saga. There was the time the senator's laundry came back pink, or the baker whose wife accidentally shrank his good tunic 2 sizes. Perhaps not so accidental, as the gossip went. Outrage, confusion, laughter, resignation. Doing laundry was a communal exercise in humility and human frailty. Still, the spirit of improvisation thrived. The wise learned to separate the whites from the reds, to bribe the fullers for extra caution, and, if all else failed, to embrace the quirks of fate. Fashion, after all, is just as much about stories as style, especially when your favorite toga is a reminder of the day things literally went sideways in the wash. In the end, ancient laundry disasters aren't so distant from our own t-shirt tragedies and shrunken sweaters. Whether you're a Roman senator with symmetric pink stains or a student with a load of blue-tinted whites, laundry binds us together in its unpredictability. Maybe, just maybe, that's why these tales continue. Equal parts warning, comedy, and comfort, with a big splash of human imperfection. The Romans even taxed urine collection. Today's syntax is your bathroom break. You pay extra for the privilege of your bodily contributions going to a good cause, slightly cleaner loincloths. But how, you might wonder, did urine, something we spend entire lives trying to politely ignore or flush away, become a revenue source for the mighty Roman Empire? Enter Vespasian, the emperor with a keen fiscal eye and a nose for profit. In the 1st century AD, public urinals weren't just public conveniences. They were critical to the Roman laundry industry. The ammonia in urine was an essential ingredient for cleansing those togas and tunics that strutted up and down the Via Appia. Romans collected pots of this so-called liquid gold from public latrines, and fullers, the original dry cleaners, found it invaluable. But Vespasian saw an opportunity where others saw, well, waste. He slapped a tax on the collection of urine from public urinals. If you wanted to scoop up l'eau de paix for your laundry business, you'd better cough up some coins too. The tax even earned its own name, vectigal urinae, a phrase you probably didn't learn in Latin class. Ever the pragmatist, Vespasian famously waved away any complaints with a coin plucked from the proceeds. Money does not stink, he declared, not even urine money. If this sounds absurd, remember this was the very same civilization that gave us indoor plumbing and paving stones. Infrastructure doesn't pay for itself. So, the humble act of relieving oneself became an indirect public good, funding the luxuries Roman citizens came to expect. And if you think we've evolved past monetizing nature's call, maybe take a closer look at festival porta potties or the pay-to-pee bathrooms in modern European train stations. Apparently, the latrine fee is an idea with legs. Crossed, perhaps, but legs nonetheless. The brilliance, or shamelessness, of the Roman approach lies in its perfect union of necessity and inevitability. Everybody pees, and if it could be weaponized for the state's coffers, so be it. When money got tight, even bodily functions were on the table, or rather, in the pot. It's the classic government move. Find something everyone does and figure out how to tax it. Suddenly, revenue streams take on an entirely new meaning. Beyond the empire's fiscal health, though, the urinal tax also subtly underscored the shared, earthy reality of human life. Even Caesar answered nature's call. The Romans didn't shy away from such facts. Instead, they built a profitable ritual around them. The marketplace of bodily commerce was, for a time, as active as the forum itself. Fast forward to today, and the echoes of Vespasian's tax resonate unexpectedly. Consider the bottled water craze, paying for what used to be free, or those public comfort stations that demand coins for access. In New York, there's even a museum dedicated to the history of public toilets. One could argue that, at every flush We're all participating in a very ancient tradition, putting a price, however small, on the universal. So, if during your next festival outing you're scrounging for change to access a less than gleaming portaloo, take comfort. You are not alone, and you are certainly not the first. You're participating in a time-honoured, if slightly odorous, civic duty, ensuring that civilization endures, one tax drop at a time. The Romans might not recognise our modern world, but they'd absolutely recognise the logic of a tax on the unavoidable, an ingenious hustle that reminds us government creativity truly knows no bounds, even, and perhaps especially, when it comes to matters of plumbing, profit, and a dash of potty humour. Roman Laundry Day leaves its mark. Pruny feet, mystery rashes, and a dazzling sense of humour are the side effects you live with. Your skin is never the same, but your friends respect the effort. It begins with the water, or rather, the slurry that passes for it. Step into the Phalonica, a Roman laundromat, and a bouquet of wet wool, vinegar, and who knows what else greets you like an elbow to the ribs. The floor squelches beneath your sandaled feet. Within moments, the tips of your toes look like ancient raisins. You haven't even started scrubbing, and you're already daydreaming about your next bath. Only, you'll need to earn that luxury. The tools of the trade are Roman ingenuity at its most questionable. A mixture of urine, yes, collected from neighbours and public jars, vinegar, water, and sometimes imported clay, is sloshed around in vats. The ammonia in urine is prized for its cleaning power, but nobody talks about what it does to your skin after hours of stomping. It tingles, it itches, it peels in ways that inspire new adjectives. If you're lucky, you finish the week with only a splotchy rash and a developing resistance to strange odours. But the real badge of honour isn't the rash you share with every apprentice. It's the camaraderie. Rubbing shoulders and elbows with fellow washerfolk, you trade gossip, jokes, and the Latin equivalent of hang in there. There's a running contest, who can make the grossest face without stepping out of the tub, who tells the funniest story while ring dancing on a slippery soapstone floor. You discover inventiveness is the best balm. Old superstitions promise that a dab of olive oil or a quick prayer to Minerva, goddess of crafts, will keep your hands from dissolving into lizard scales. Of course, no one says laundry is glamorous. The side effects on your skin are matched by the marks on your soul, but not in the way you might think. Each session's hardship is shared. You earn nods of respect, not only for getting whites whiter, but for persevering in the face of universal disgust. Your friends notice the small sacrifices. Today, your fingernails are slightly yellower, your feet are tender, and your laugh is irresistible. It's the laugh of someone who's witnessed horrors and lived to exaggerate them. Outside Phalonica walls, customers wrinkle their noses, but they also tip well for a clean tunic. When you walk home carrying bundles, people make room on the crowded streets. There's a secret admiration in their eyes like the way modern city dwellers respect garbage collectors or sewer workers. Necessary, heroic in their own right, and never totally clean. Some evenings, skin stinging. You wonder if your soul is a bit tougher, if the grime is a second armour, the rashes a Roman badge of honour. Your hands remember the day's soap and laughter long after the marks have faded. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Skin be damned. And as you slip into your slightly less filthy linen at night, a sense of pride outshines the itch. There's dignity in the humble work, transforming the city's laundry one stomp at a time, leaving a legacy of cleaner togas and resilient spirits. All thanks to Roman Laundry Day and its lasting side effects, stamped on both your skin and your soul. If you're feeling ambitious or antisocial, you try washing at home. The result: one very angry neighbour, a mysterious puddle on your floor, and a dog that will never trust you again. But let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater, or, in this case, the muddy dog with the garden hose. There's a certain pride in tackling the mess yourself, imagining that you've joined the rustic ranks of rugged survivalists everywhere. It starts innocently enough. You glance at your dog after a particularly enthusiastic romp in the rain, utter the fateful words, "How dirty can he possibly be?" And thus, the saga begins. First, there's the prep work. You gather every old towel in the house, which turns out to be 4, because the rest were mysteriously sacrificed to previous cleaning attempts, their whereabouts unknown. As you fill your bucket with warm water and line up an impressive arsenal of shampoos, brushes, and treats, your dog watches you with a look of deep suspicion, quietly plotting his escape route. It's at this point you realise that DIY in the context of pet bathing really means do it, yes, you, all by yourself. The bathing area, which is just a euphemism for bathtub, shower stall, or, in more desperate cases, backyard with a hose, becomes a battleground. If you're outdoors, the operation involves a complex dance around the yard, hose in one hand, dog leash in the other, successfully soaking only yourself and about half the lawn. Indoors, you kneel beside the tub, every muscle tensed, while your dog performs a convincing impression of a slippery, 4-legged Houdini. As water splashes everywhere, it's not just the dog who starts to look a little wild-eyed. Shampoo ends up on your elbow, conditioner on the floor, and both you and your dog now smell like lavender oatmeal, which turns out to be less soothing and more reminiscent of an ill-advised breakfast. Your pet alternates between pitiful whimpers and shaking his entire body, sending beads of water flying onto your freshly painted walls, neatly folded laundry, and, yes, your imported Persian rug. This is the moment you truly appreciate why professional groomers charge what they do. But you're in too deep to quit now. You recall advice from earnest DIY guides. Use treats to create a positive association, speak in soothing tones, and avoid getting water in the ears. Your dog, being an independent spirit, promptly ignores the treats, refuses to be soothed, and manages to get shampoo in his eyes, at which point you discover the zoomies, the phenomenon where a freshly washed dog ricochets around the house at Mach 2, trailing wet fur and suds in his wake. Some pet owners swear by homemade remedies, a paste of baking soda and water for stubborn stains, apple cider vinegar diluted as a shine-boosting rinse, or oatmeal as a gentle skin. Soother. These methods are often championed in online enthusiast forums, where people share before and after photos and glowing testimonials, and perhaps a subtle note of competition. But reality frequently diverges from these wholesome Pinterest boards. The baking soda remains a lumpy mess, the vinegar spray is met with canine outrage, and the oatmeal bath, advertised as calming, simply turns your tub into a bowl of mushy cereal. Of course, not all attempts are disasters. Occasionally, your pet emerges from the experience looking regal, sparkling, and dare we say, grateful. In those rare moments, you'll look at your clean, fluffy friend and think, how hard could that have been? Conveniently forgetting the hour-long chase, the ankle-deep water on the floor, and your neighbour's frantic knock at the door asking, "Is everything all right in there?" In the end, home remedies and DIY, pet washing, are rites of passage, a test of patience, resourcefulness, and your bond with your dog. It's messy, unpredictable, sometimes hilarious, and, every once in a while, even successful. Just keep the towels, and apologies to your neighbours, close at hand. Laundry workers aren't glamorous, but they're essential. You toast to the heroic souls with the toughest jobs in Rome, those keeping society clean, one whiff at a time. Picture yourself strolling through the bustling city streets, the midday sun beating down, Roman crowds jostling for space. Overhead, laundry flutters like miniature banners, strung between weathered buildings, each piece a silent testament to the tireless hands of the fullers. Unlike the marble cutters or the celebrated bakers, these workers don't enjoy statues in the forum or poems sung in their honor. Instead, their labor is measured in the ache of their backs, the roughness of their palms, and the acrid scent that clings to their tunics long after the workday ends. The fuller's world is one of sweat, steam, and oddly, ammonia. In ancient Rome, the secret to sparkling white togas lay not in exotic soaps, but in good old-fashioned urine, collected from public jars placed on street corners. Passing by a fuller's workshop or fullonica, you'd catch a whiff of the city's least glamorous recycling program, a testament to Roman ingenuity and, perhaps, their infamous pragmatic streak. It takes a special kind of resilience to knead foul-smelling linens with your bare feet in urine vats, humming old songs against the stench, while the city's elites parade past in spotless garb, oblivious to the toil that made them possible. But there's more to the fullers than their olfactory sacrifices. They are chemists, inventors, social organizers. Within the cavernous, steamy workshops, teams of workers rhythmically trample cloth, rinse it in bubbling cauldrons, and beat it against smooth stones. Each stage is orchestrated with a choreographer's precision, the workers' hands moving in a practiced dance handed down for generations. And when the togas are gleaming and the tunics are snowy white, the fullers even finish them with a hint of olive oil, restoring a lustrous finish that signals both cleanliness and sophistication. Their contribution goes beyond hygiene. It's about belonging. Wearing a perfectly laundered toga isn't just a matter of looking presentable. It's a badge of citizenship. The best fullers help maintain the social fabric, quite literally, holding together the threads of Roman identity. The city's great spectacles, triumphs, festivals, and weddings would look drabber without their invisible artistry. Imagine the Senate in stained, wrinkled togas. Imagine a bride clad in less than pristine garments. The horror. And though their profession is humble, their brotherhood is strong. Fullers band together in guilds, their camaraderie forged by shared hardship. They pool money for funerals, sponsor festivals in honor of Minerva, and defend one another in disputes with customers. Sometimes a fuller makes good, opens his own workshop, buys freedom for his apprentice, even commissions a small tombstone, proudly bearing his trade. Marcus, fuller, lover of cleanliness, father to 3 honest sons. A modest legacy, but a real one. We tend to romanticize ancient Rome with visions of chariots, Caesars, and grand colonnades. But the city's pulse was driven by the men and women hunched over washtubs, wringing out the sweat of a civilization. If you listen, really listen, it's their laughter you hear, echoing from the alleyways as the day's work winds down. Their grit and resilience remind us that history's greatest empires are built with ordinary hands, performing extraordinary labor day after day. So tonight, as you raise your glass, spare a thought for these unsung custodians of Roman dignity. No laurel wreaths adorn their brows, but in the intricate tapestry of city life, the fuller's threads shine white and bright, a quiet, enduring triumph, spun with soap, toil, and the odd dash of olive oil. Let me know if you want any changes or a different focus. Could you wash your clothes in urine today? No. Should you? Also, no. But your industrial strength detergent suddenly seems a lot less intimidating than it did yesterday. For a moment, let's imagine you actually wanted to try ancient Roman laundry for yourself, would you get away with it? Take a stroll down to your nearest laundromat, slosh your clothes into a yellow-tinted bucket, and, well, see what happens. Most likely, what happens is someone pays the manager extra to ask you, politely, but firmly, to wash your hands and collect your things, because we have, gratefully, moved on. And yet, the differences between ancient and modern cleaning methods aren't as stark as they seem. Modern laundry is a high-stakes, high-tech operation. Colour-safe bleaches, enzymes that strip out wine stains, pods with warning labels, and childproof packaging. Our tools are dazzlingly effective, but under all that glossy branding, the same stubborn chemistry battles are happening. Breaking down oils, dissolving proteins, freshening up hours-old disasters. The Romans exploited ammonia, a tough but effective chemical for cleaning. Most modern stain removers still pack the same ammonia punch, only with friendlier fragrances and without needing contributions from the public restroom. So why does urine seem so much more disgusting than bleach? Social norms do a lot of the heavy lifting. Most of us recoil at the idea of dirty products, even when they're hazardous in disguise. Ammonia on a spray bottle? Fine. Ammonia from a toilet? Suddenly, a badge of shame. In truth, the chemistry doesn't care. Your ancestors likely had fewer hang-ups. If it worked, they used it. Still, there are major differences in safety and convenience. Beyond the smell, urine carries bacteria and other pathogens, especially when stored, that could pose risks the Romans didn't fully understand. Modern detergents are engineered to be as safe as they are effective, tested and regulated for home use. And that's not even considering our hyper-sanitary culture. Health codes, convenience, and the psychological distance we enjoy from our cleaning supplies. Let's not forget the simple realities of scale. Romans ran public laundries because not everyone could access clean water, and fabric was precious. Today, clean water flows from our taps. Our washing machines whir away in the next room, and our closets usually hold enough clean shirts for every day of the week. Ancient laundry was communal, odorous, and hand-powered. Ours is solitary, sanitized, and, if you're lucky, completed in total anonymity while you scroll Instagram. Yet, if you could communicate the price tag for modern hygiene to a Roman, mountains of plastic packaging, petrochemical residues, microplastics in the ocean, there's a chance they'd find that as shocking as we find their vats of communal pee. In their eyes, using every available resource, no matter how odd or unappealing, might actually seem responsible. Our modern version of clean comes bundled with hidden costs and environmental consequences we are only now starting to reckon with. All of which begs the question, what will future generations say about us? Will industrial detergents be seen as quaint or horrifying? Will a clever TikTok influencer suggest a classic Roman cleanse, complete with artisanal, locally sourced ammonia, and suddenly set off a wave of heritage washing? Stranger things have happened. One thing's for sure. We can laugh about ancient laundry rituals from a comfortable distance, but the impulse behind them, the willingness to experiment with whatever is available, the desire for cleanliness, and the ingenuity of working with what you've got, remains just as familiar as the scent of freshly washed sheets. The big difference? These days, it's a lot more likely to smell like lilacs than like the public baths. So, could you wash your clothes in urine today? Technically, yes. Should you? For everyone's sake, past, present, and future, let's stick with the detergent. It's not just laundry, it's a community event. Jokes, music, arguments, and small victories fill the air. making this ritual as human as dinner with friends, just stickier. Step into any shared laundromat or communal washroom around midday, and you'll sense it instantly. The buzz of neighbourly life, the exchange of glances over tangled arms of clothing, the subtle but ever-present negotiation of whose turn it is to use the best machine. The mechanical rhythm of washers sets a backdrop to laughter and gossip, and the sudsy air becomes thick with unspoken rules and customs that everyone, regardless of status or schedule, must observe. In places where space and resources are limited, the ritual of washing has evolved into a social glue, pulling together unlikely friends and frenemies alike. Every community wash tells its own story. There's always someone who brings the portable speaker, unapologetically blasting pop hits, old school soul, or sometimes the inexplicable drama of local talk radio. Parents come armed with snacks and, inevitably, a child or two who scurries between rows of machines, weaving a kind of obstacle course that sparks laughter and occasionally mild horror. Teenagers gather in little knots, conspiring about weekend plans, their chatter occasionally interrupted by the comical shriek of someone discovering a forgotten tissue that's turned half the load into snowy confetti. These moments, mundane yet unexpectedly intimate, create the shared folklore of the washing room, stories traded and repeated with the same fondness as family legends. More than just a practical necessity, the collective wash shapes the social order. An unspoken choreography dictates when it's polite to step in and when it's wise to hold back. You'll see it in the gentle head tilt that asks, "Is this your basket?" And the world-weary eye rolls when someone hogs both dryers during peak hours. The tools of this exchange are not just detergent and bleach, but informal diplomacy, a quick wit, and the daily tally of remembered kindnesses or annoyances. Arguments might erupt over missing socks, out-of-turn loads, or whose detergent is leaving behind the suspicious fragrance. But resolution is often found in laughter, or, at worst, a cool truce hastened by the threat of overcooked laundry. All of this is underpinned by ritual. It's the older neighbour, folded shirt tidy, who always arrives on Tuesdays at 9 sharp, her presence a metronome of predictable calm. It's the friendliest person in the room who stages impromptu dance-offs on folding tables when the right song comes on, or the local poet who recites a line or two about perpetual motion and tumble to polite applause or appreciative groans. Here, even rivalries become part of the routine. The silent contest to see who can pull a load from the washer with the fewest damp socks clinging to the agitator, or who draws the biggest laugh with banter about the odd sock's secret lives. Across cultures and decades, this setting has proven remarkably consistent. Whether in post-war tenements or modern apartment blocks, the washroom is where etiquette and improvisation combine. In some communities, stories from the washing room become oral history, a place to pass warnings about machines that eat coins, or triumphs about a long-missing washcloth's triumphant return. It's where new arrivals are quietly welcomed with advice about spin cycles, and where old-timers swap stories about the days before automatic dispensers, when getting a good lather was a badge of honour. Ultimately, the social ritual of the wash is not really about clean clothes. It's about shared effort, mutual recognition, and the small joys discovered in an ordinary, essential act. The suds and stains may come and go, but what always remains is the network of tiny, interconnected stories, the talk, the teasing, the teamwork, and the timeless togetherness that transform laundry into community. Roman fabric is thick, like your patience by noon. Washing it takes guts, persistence, and a willingness to smell like public transport on a Monday morning. Forget modern laundry shortcuts. When it came to ancient Roman clothing, even the clothes seemed to taunt you. Tunics and togas. They weren't just fashion statements. They were survival tests, wrapped in linen and wool. These weren't the soft, cloud-like staples of a fast fashion hall. No, Roman fabric was woven to last, like the city itself, and just as merciless. You'd start by dragging your laundry to the local Folonica, Rome's answer to a laundromat. If you're picturing rolling machines or gentle soaps, think again. Picture vats filled with something a little more, let's say, personal. Romans were practical people, and their preferred stain, remover, was fermented, human urine. Yes, really. Nothing says fresh start like your trousers soaking in eau de forum. The Folones, Rome's professional washers, would stomp on the clothes, coaxing dirt and grime out, powered by the kind of resolve usually reserved for marching legions. Don't pity them. The Folonica was a hub of gossip and grit, filled with people who knew their way around both politics and paludamentum. But what did this mean for the average Roman? Well, tough clothing bred tough people. If your daily tunic could stop a breeze, it could also withstand the odd scrape along Rome's rough stone streets, or a spilled amphora of wine at a lively dinner party. Clothes were precious, patched and repaired more times than a senator's promises. Each thread told a story of persistence, of mothers turning frayed hems, of fathers rubbing sand into stubborn spots, of children learning, from the earliest age, that comfort was earned. There's a rhythm and a communal spirit to communal laundry. Picture it, a chorus of neighbours, grumbling about prices or policies, wringing socks and tunics in the same murky water, sharing glances that said, yes, this is as bad as it smells. The work was hard, but the resilience was harder. The act of scrubbing, mending, and wearing these rugged clothes was an everyday reminder that Romans were built to endure. And let's not forget the social status stitched into every tunic, the thick wool of a soldier stained with honest sweat, the crisp white toga of a magistrate, paraded only after thorough, sometimes obsessive, cleaning, the threadbare cloak of someone who'd known both the peaks and pits of Fortuna. Rome's social scene played out not just in the forum, but in the laundry line. Clean clothes meant honour, discipline, and yes, a nose for opportunity. Staying spotless was almost as challenging as staying scandal-free. Yet, in all this rigidity, there's humour, and the Romans knew it. They joked about foulones with the kind of affection reserved for people you simultaneously depend on and dread. Tough clothes meant enduring the jibes. Is that tunic home-washed, or did you anger the launderer gods, and emerging from the Folonica smelling like hard work and a touch of vinegar? So next time you curse your delicate cycle, remember, real Roman laundry meant braving stains that outlasted dynasties. Their fabric and their people were resilient, fearless, and yes, a little bit pungent. Each time a Roman wrapped themselves in those thick weaves, they wore not just clothing, but a badge of survival. In a city famous for its feats of engineering and empire building, it takes a special kind of toughness to keep your tunic clean and your pride intact. Let me know if you need further tweaking, a specific anecdote, or want to adjust the humour and tone. At last, you stagger home, clean clothes in hand, pride in heart, and possibly some permanent psychological scars. The sun sets, the city quiets, and you swear you'll never complain about laundry again, at least not until next week. Let's take a moment to appreciate what you just survived. Today was not simply about washing socks or rescuing that white shirt from the jaws of a rogue red sock. No, today was a saga, a hero's journey. You have braved the dreaded three-flight walk-up, the eternal battle for an available washer, and the time-bending limbo otherwise known as Dryer 7. You've made eye contact with strangers over half-folded towels, mastered advanced guerrilla tactics for folding fitted sheets, and, perhaps most importantly, endured the all-seeing gaze of the one neighbour who always seems to be peering over her glasses, mentally noting your choice of detergent. You survived the laundry room, a space with unspoken rules more complex than ancient Roman law. Woe betide the soul who leaves their clothes unattended for more than 3 minutes after the cycle ends. Timers are set. Text alerts are watched. Clocks are synchronized down to the second, lest you face the passive-aggressive wrath of someone else's still damp jeans being dumped onto the communal shame bench. Yet, through this shared ordeal, somehow, laundry day forges unlikely bonds. Maybe you exchanged awkward hellos. Maybe you helped an overwhelmed newbie decode the mystery of cold, permanent press delicate. You might even have shared tips for delinting sweaters or reassured someone that coloured detergent pods are not, in fact, a government conspiracy. These fleeting acts of kindness, whispered over the thrum of spinning drums, are society at its softest, its realist. But as you close your door on the world of rumbling machines and return to the sanctuary of your own space, just look at you. You are triumphant. You have prevailed. You didn't just do laundry. You conquered the very concept of filth and chaos. You have forced your world, however briefly, into a state of crisp, toasty, lemon verbena-scented harmony. There is power in this. Somewhere deep in your soul, the shout of fresh sheets on my bed drowns out the bugles of ancient battlefields. Dinner can wait. First, you revel in your cleanest self. And as you collapse onto your delightfully fresh bed, take a moment to thank the universe for every humble domestic marvel at your disposal. Marvel at the absolute luxury of not having to stomp on your clothes in a vat outside, or barter for water rights, or fend off wild goats who see your laundry as a light snack. Your laundry journey may have been arduous, but at least it was indoors, climate-controlled, and did not require you to explain yourself to a Roman tax collector with strong opinions about the urine tax. Tonight, as you stretch out on your perfectly washed sheets, under the warm cocoon of shampooed hair and non-pea-scented pajamas, remember the brave souls of ancient Rome. They walked barefoot into vats of questionable liquids, risked their noses and dignity for a shot at clean linens, and somehow kept going, even when their leaders taxed bathroom breaks. Be thankful for your washing machine, your dryer sheets, and your ability to do laundry without community surveillance or strategic bladder control. Because history is not just a parade of conquerors or inventions. It's also the sum of everyone who trudged, stomped, and laughed their way through the world's worst laundry days. Sleep well, dear listener, and may your dreams be free of public urinals and ancient Roman rinse cycles. So tonight, as you stretch out on your perfectly washed sheets under the warm cocoon of shampooed hair and non-pea scented pajamas, remember the brave souls of ancient Rome. They walked barefoot into vats of questionable liquids, risked their noses and dignity for a shot at clean linens, and somehow kept going, even when their leaders taxed bathroom breaks. Be thankful for your washing machine, your dryer sheets, and your ability to do laundry without community surveillance or strategic bladder control. Because history is not just a parade of conquerors or inventions. It's also the sum of everyone who trudged, stomped, and laughed their way through the world's worst laundry days. Sleep well, dear listener, and may your dreams be free of public urinals and ancient Roman rinse cycles.